Yeah? Well, thank you, Peeling. I say yeah to you too. All right. We're going to give him a good old good luck. Have fun on this. This is Tombstones. It's going to be an ANS versus OSP 4 versus 4. Team 1 in the blue trunks. We got Microsoft Edgelord Arushala. I think that's how you say it. We're going to call them Aru. We got Bishop Havel and then Vine. Over on Team 2, we got Kiwi Bird, Lost Leviathan, Wellspur, and AD Riser. So, this is Tombstones. It is vaguely reminiscent of Pillars. You can call it like a dark Pillars, if that makes any sense. A point neutral, as is the same with Pillars. There's going to be a B point, C point, D point, E point. 2 naturals per team. A lot of violence over the middle. You can see some close range fights down below. I love going for those little close quarters combats. Reminds me a little bit of Underside of Pillars and Arroya, kind of mixed together for those close quarters engagements. Nice little split rock down the middle. You can hide shuttles and corvettes in. Get some of these long fights around the outside edges here. Like you can see OSB sometimes rotates down this way with bulkers. Tries to go for a bit of gunfighting on this angle. You can see ANS potentially go high across this area, try and play that orbital gameplay. Sometimes see little sharking CLs drift under the map here looking for anything they can find. That said, I have not seen Tombstones with carriers, though, so this could be a completely different map. We're going to figure out just what happens. Should set these teams up right on the 180-degree mark. Blue Team 1, Orange Team 2. Let's see what happens. 40 seconds to go. Lock them in, Aru and Vine. Whew, this is going to be a good one. Yeah. It's really neat seeing the different ways that players will play the game. In the last game, we just kind of committed to Forehead because me and Edge, we played with each other a little bit. We looked at our fleets, Acello, monitors, that all works pretty well together. The enemy was expecting to have a lot of like carrier silliness, and we just kind of went with the classic 6,000 point push. And honestly, a 6K just heavy metal brick frontline, that kind of like scrubs through most threats there. Like they had clearly got some like potential of fighter stuff, but they just really didn't go in for it. Actually, wait, hang on. Did they even have any fight? They must have had like one space plane or other, right? I think. I didn't get a full check on what their comp was. I know they had like 8 voxels or something because they were expecting heavy fighter presence, but turns out when you have 8 voxels against a resilient frontline of 450, 600 mil, plasma, 250s, and that jazz, it is pretty brutal. Anyways, let's go back into this game proper, looking at this yellow and blue device coming in this way. What do we got right in front of our face? The sign hiss from Vine over here. Vine running, looks like some sort of cap fleet. Got our CL here, 250s on that thing, size 2 backpack, whole bunch of those SDMs, very good for screening the vessel. Look over here, we've got ourselves a little jamming ship likely to accompany it. Has a bullseye lock on the belly. 2 of those are going to be the blanket jammers on the sides. Take a look over here. We're seeing blanket, 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 floodlight illuminator, and then a bullseye lock. This thing has a parallax to burn through, so it can potentially detect stealthy ships. Nice. Don't recall any ANS fighters? Oh, okay. I was a little preoccupied that game, just fighting capitals, so I didn't know. Anyways, back to this one. Illuminators on this thing, as well as some of those size 2 mounts. Okay, SDMs. I'm wondering, is this potentially a SAW SDM device? That could be kind of a creature. Another one of them occupying the top of the map here, going towards that B point. All right, Microsoft Edgelord coming in here with a 250 battleship, 2 of those Mark 65s on the top there, and a 450 turret on the belly, because that's one of the slots you want to just have that big gun in. Got their backup antenna. Nice to see they got the base check. Ooh, what do they have on that? That's a double antenna. All right, really taking the backups on this. Looks like they got some fancy point defense. I see Auroras there, if I'm not mistaken, and some defenders. Nice little battleship here with a little flight of fighters in the back. Yep, I'm starting to see more and more of this, like, just Wing of 4 Tantos. That seems like a good backpack for a battleship, just good for scouting and screening and stuff. Escorting it is going to be a couple of these Mark 62 and Defender bricks. Good stuff to see there. We hear the initial caps going off as both teams secure their naturals very fast. You can basically deploy right on top of them, so it's pretty much an instant cap. Going to see the E point go in here in a second once they drift themselves onto it. All right, Bishop Havel going to be running the cap fleet. There's a beam destroyer, has its jammers, double jammer even. Ooh, that's going to make this thing really hard to spot. Bullseye on the nose, chaff box in the back, defenders all around. Good ship. You can see focus particle and one of these energy, energy generators, reactors. Yes, it's right in front of my face. Cooled amplifiers here to facilitate extra jamming on that thing. You see they've got a little spyglass device going under the map here. So this is spyglass with some plant control centers. Okay, interesting. Has a chaff box as well as that. You can get away with not bringing a plant control center if you take a reactor instead, and then you get damage control. So this thing is going to burn down if it takes any damage at all. Have to watch out for that. They've got another one towards the top of the map. Same loadout idea here. They've got themselves a little torpedo corvette here. Cute little guy, double defenders, bullseye on the chin, and maybe hybrid bank? Okay, a couple hybrids, mainly torpedoes on that thing. Looks like it's got a little friend accompanying it here. We see there's a Mark 62 brick with defenders all around. Good device. That's the Illuminator ship we saw before. Let's see, what else did they have? They had spyglass, missiles, they had a gun, and then they had a missile and gun. Looks like those missiles B and missiles C. Okay, so they've got these little missile devices hunting around the map with that command guidance, most likely. And then a couple of other little gunfighters and stuff. So that's a nice little fleet. And then double carrier coming from Aru over here. We see them already launching out their craft here. They've got these sundials, good for airborne warning and control. CWAX is the technical term, but I don't know what that stands for. Why does the BB take backup antennas? We'll cover that real quick after we do these. So we look at these carriers. Looks pretty... Prowler drive. All right, that's a little funny. Anyways, flights, we see a bunch of interceptors in these things, and then taking a look at its companion, we are going to see that there is a bunch of bombers in this one. Okay, so that's kind of an interesting way of loading these out. You probably want to balance the bombers across both ships, because otherwise you are only like limited by 2 launch pads on that. Might see some tunings on that. Anyways, let's look at the bottom of the map. Unfortunately, yeah, you're going to run to the wrong neighborhood. Let's look at the OSP side, as a whole bunch of these 250 mil guns are going to open up there. This thing has got some plasma and 250 on the top side from Kiwi Bird. They've got themselves a C-56 broadsider here as well. And then rounding out the fleet is going to be another C-56 broadsider. So using those plasma turrets on this thing, it's a Throngler is the working term, only 5 plasma guns, so not the full package. They did take some budget to bring along a little EWAR support craft, Dazzler and Lyrebird jammers on that, so have to cut your budget somewhere. All right, let's see. A point is being tested right now as we see half cup of flour. This cute little thing was in the last game. I love this. It's a brownie recipe cap fleet. So we see we've got the butter back here, half cup of it. It's a mass driver support liner. Nice to see direct fire support weapons. It's got a Bloodhound accompanying it, just a little basic tug. They got themselves a, looks like, multi-mission tug here. You get pretty standard package effects on that. Another multi-mission tug. Looks like the A-capper that could not, as it get beamed here. T-20 and mines. Tried to deploy some mines. Does get 2 of those sprints off. Unfortunately, not really gonna be doing much here, as they're just gonna get taxed by all that RPF. And then lastly, in their fleet, they had, what was that? Multi-mission, 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 and then Bloodhound. All right, so 3 multi-mission tugs to give them some awareness. Wellspur coming in here with, ooh, okay. I played a quintet of monitors in the last game. This is going to be a hexet, septet. I'm not sure what the word for 6 of them is, but 6 monitors, seeing plasma on the top and bottom of these things, C90 on those, seeing T30s on this one. Let's go through these in order. That's plasma with jammer. How the hell do you afford power on this? Huh. Jammer, pinpoint. Oh, it's got no radar. That's why. All right, well, that makes sense. Anyways, a plasma C90, another one similar to the leader. You've got C90 and then some T30s on these. C90 T30 with point defense, C90 T30, and then if I had to guess, yep, C90 T30. Whole bunch of C90 in the fleet. Love those big caliber guns. Bit of plasma, bit of 100 mil, nice sweeper. It's a sectet or hextet if you're... interesting. I think it's a sectet. I was thinking septet, but anyways. Yeah, they're just still popping away at that. 8 point remains neutral. ANS does actually get their caps slightly faster here, so they got B and C ever so slightly before OSP could get onto the E side. Means that they are going to be slightly ahead, assuming that nothing changes. They will technically win the game, but that's a long way away from now, so we'll see how the game ends up actually developing. I believe that was the fleets except for AD Riser, who is running along with a little carrier here called Mulch. A couple internal hangars, small hangar. Okay, so just going for the 5 pads on this thing. Not really too much to say. It's a light carrier. A couple of bombers in this thing, a couple of strike fighters as well. We should see it has some combat wings already deployed. Yep, a couple of these groups of 4, and then looks like just one of these guys with 100 mil gun pods just kind of hunting around the battle space, looking to see if it can't pick off something or other. Look at those big old guns on these things. I love the gun pod bombers. I need to start running those more. I think they're going to be great against the little light threats like these Corvettes, because you can just run up and dump a bunch of 100 mil before they can fire on you with defenders. It'd be Space Airborne Warning Control, based on AWACS with Airborne Warning. I'm not sure what you're referring to there. If you're... CWAX, I think was the term I was for. Anyways, let's talk about things we actually know about, which is big caliber guns. Bad track quality is the name of the game over here, as these guns are having a hard time hitting that. That's got to be firing on like a Huntress track, because that is all over the place. Anyways, beam also going to be carving into this thing. That's not what you want to see. That is going to be some very big damage dealt, as yeah, they're just going to hold down the trigger with the beam. That little device over here, as we see, it has that dragonfly able to rotate quickly, covering both the A point and down here this kind of aggression towards the C side. So they're going to be locking this thing out with dual jammers. It needs to drift itself back into cover and start restoring itself. Has 12 teams, but only 4 restorers. Needs to restore that locker. That gets you +1, so you'll have 5 afterwards. Anyways, they're trying to test the waters, and ANS doing the right thing where they just kind of play the range game here. They use their 250 and 450 to really bring the Yeah, bring the ANS Thunder to the OSP as they're trying to play the 250 game as well. And unfortunately, they just don't have the lock range they want right now. We see these shots flying all over the place due to the fact that, well, you just don't have a pinpoint lock range out to that 8-kilometer maximum distance that the 250 goes to. ANS has no such problem. If we take a look, probably on the bow of this thing. Not on the bow. Where is it? Oh, there it is. Right on the chin. We see that bullseye able to get you that lock out to 9 kilometers. So they have that range bracket advantage until you hit 6.5, which is the pinpoint lock radar on the OSP. Anyways, OSP is going to advance as the what do we call it? The sextet? Yeah, the sextet is going to start bombshelling at this destroyer, which is doing a bit of a number on it. Ooh. Yeah, the Dragonfly drive there is taking a couple of hits. Destroyers do not have that much armor, so they can get hurt pretty bad by these various little explosions. CUAC is Space Airborne Warning and Control System. You know what? That makes sense. Anyways, let's take a look. AD Riser had a pretty standard Acello. This Acello is doing the right thing. It's staying with its monitors. This is a really tough front line. We showed this in the last game. Acello provides you a bit of radar support with the bullseye lock on it, which should be right there on the chin. There it is. Gets that omnidirectional comms jamming, gets those Auroras to shoot down missiles and potential, what do you call them, strike craft threats. I am cooked after so much streaming today, so you'll have to bear with me as I get a little bit silly. Bongo Bazooka, thank you for the follow. Welcome to the channel and all that. We are just hanging out playing Nebulous Fleet Command. And lastly, they've got a little T-20 Pivy shuttle. Just honestly, having these little ablative cappers, these are really important. As we saw in the last game, a little capper moving onto the point at the right time, that can make a big difference. Flying Fool as well, thank you for the follow. Welcome to the channel. Wow, we're getting so many people in today. I'm so glad that Nebulous is popping off like this because, man, it is a fun game. I love casting these games and just showcasing all the different silly things that people are developing into. All right, there we go. So a couple of these SDMs are going to be trying to pop off at this fighter here, but I think wandering into the Aurora range is going to get shot. Also, we can see that the fighter there was actually able to use its nose gun to kind of do a jousting maneuver. We can even see the little chaff countermeasures and stuff it pops. Oh, that's so cute. I love this update. This is so cool. Anyways, take a look at the map right now. We see that there's a couple of radar assets just kind of keeping the ANS team honest. They've got their own radar asset parked off in orbit. Now, these Spyglass Sprinters, their role has kind of been supplanted by something like the Sundials over here, which are similar role, maybe not quite the same range, 10 kilometer versus the 11.5 of a Spyglass Corvette or frigate or such. But you have to remember that these guys over here, the Sundials, they're only 75 points. A Spyglass like this is probably costing you at least 200. So you can get a pair of these things, launch them from your carrier using the large pads on there, and you can just basically occupy the same amount of sensor coverage that you can get with a Corvette. That said, the Corvette is vulnerable to different things than the little CWAC is. CWAC, for example, those SDMs could go after it and give you a bad time. Yeah. Amazing time to be a Neb player. You're damn right, Flying Fool. We are having a blast with this patch. I streamed for, I don't even remember how many hours yesterday. I think it was like 9. And this is technically saying it's a 2-hour stream, but in reality, I started at 1 p.m. Eastern today, which, if I look at the clock, is almost about 10 hours ago. Woohoo! We had a bit of a oopsie in there as my entire computer crashed, which was a fun time. All right. Hustler Flight over here is looking for something or other. They got some SGMs and jamming pods and illuminators, so they're trying to do something silly in there. Possibly trying to do those illuminated. Yeah, interesting. I don't know how well those are going to work. SGM does mean it's a like anti-ship missile, so maybe they're trying to do some Gale-esque stuff. Gale being the working term for a size 2 missile that has a illumination type seeker, the SAW type. So, yeah. All right, let's see. Over here, 100 mil is going to find these two Corvettes. Unfortunately, there's not really much they can do about it as, yeah, 100 mil is just going to open up on them in the broadside, and we're going to see just how fast lightly armored targets are shot up here. Seeing the defenders and torpedo complement already getting wounded. They are backing up a little bit, though. Looks like they have been kind of like zoned out briefly. Bit of jamming going down and maybe a bit of the 450 and 250. Yeah, Edge using their big guns on the belly and then the smaller but still quite capable fast-firing guns on the top here. That said, they're going to eat 600 mil and some 450 in return as well. Should see that Acello open up. Oop, that's me clicking right past it. Where's that Acello on the list? Here we go. Yep, the Acello just going daka, 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 trying to get some 450 AP into the nose of this battleship. They have plasma. The question is, can they get in range to use it? As we see, these plasma ships are unfortunately the ones who are getting the brunt of the initial assault. They've burned out their jammers here. Battle shortening does carry some risks as you are very vulnerable to it. Anyways, a couple of missiles are attempted, but between all the point defense here provided by either the 3-kilometer range Auroras or just the collection of bastions and Pavis on these things, I don't think any of these will even get close. Can ships multi-target between guns? Yes, depends how you set them up. So you could say on this monitor, for example, you could have these T-30s set independently, or you can have them grouped. Pretty common to usually group your fire groups because it means you only have like one entry on here. So you can see these are named firing 100 mils. And like technically you could have them individually grouped, but if you get a ship like Kiwi Birds down here, we have all these different weapons at the bottom. Then you can end up having a lot of fire orders here. It just clogs it all up. Firefly2442, thank you for the follow. Welcome to the channel. All right, let's see. Hustler Flight over here is trying their hand. They've got a Saw Seeker going down. Let's see if it gets intercepted or not. Maybe a couple more of them. All right, they're trying to go for this one. Yeah, that's just going to whiz off into the abyss. Unfortunately, no dice on that one. Trying to do a bit of fighter bombing here. Unfortunately, running into the range they do not want to be in as... Mufan, thank you for the follow as well. Yeah, Hustler Flight having a bad time. That Pavis is popping away at them. Going to tax one of them and probably go out to the other ones. This game is awesome. I agree. This game is awesome. Welcome to Nebulous Fleet Command. If you are new to the channel, pull up, have a seat. We stream this game regularly, and it has been popping off lately as we just got this newest patch, and everyone is loving it. All right, let's take a look at some things that are happening. 2 teaspoons of vanilla extract. All right, chat, I'm going to go through this real quick once again, just so we know the recipe, all right? This is Lost Leviathan's brownie recipe. 1/2 cup of butter, 2 eggs, 1 cup of sugar, 1/3 cup of cocoa powder, 2 teaspoons vanilla extract, and 1/2 cup of flour. That is your brownie recipe. I personally recommend adding chocolate chips, but that's because I'm based like that. Anyways, back to the matter at hand. We've got 2 teaspoons of vanilla extract going towards B point. What defends B point? A completely cored out ship. Oh god, what happened to this thing when we weren't looking? There is just a sudden lack of mounts aboard it. Technically can restore the drive and get this thing motional again, but there is a multi-mission tug heading this way. Oh dear. This is a singular missile, probably just enough to finish this thing off if I had to guess. It has a reinforced like compartment stack here, but that's a lot of damage, Chief. Like, it's probably going to fully red this thing out, if not structure break it. Anyways, a couple of these size ones going off here, trying to deflect against this hybrid missile that's trying to intercept. So the play is this: attack onto this point. They're going to try and counter this one. Okay, looks like interception has been good. Yep, they fired off some extra ones just in case, so that is fine. A couple of these bombers are going around the map, so this is one of the things you have to be worried about. You can't really just hide empty assets up at the top of the map anymore. Otherwise, somebody's going to come along like this. Flying in a straight line is bad news bears, as I believe these bombs are just going to find their way home, since that is a straight line. Are you ready, kids? Wonk! Goodbye to your aft section. Yeah, right into that. No damage control teams, so it is dead, done, and dusted. This is the reason why you see now for scouting the new Sundial little scouts here. These guys are really good at doing that same role that we saw there, although they're not vulnerable to bombs. They can get attacked by fighters, but they have the ability to burn their thrusters really fast and then kind of move backwards and not get hit by those things. So, whoo! I'm still going. Yes, I am still going, much to the surprise of me, myself, and everyone else involved. But hey, I'm going to keep casting here until I fall over, which is honestly probably going to be pretty soon. Like, I am feeling it, Mr. Krabs. Don't get me wrong, but at the same time, Neb is very fun. Anyways, Bishop Havel having a bit of a bad time as some of their assets have been taxed out here. We saw around the map, it was, Vine lost one of their ships here. Bit of a furball committing here. Okay, so Mamba Flight is going to be engaging onto Grizzly that was found wanting. Unfortunately, these bombers are not exactly going to have a good time. Where are those fighters? Come on. Any second now. Firefly HE frag missile coming this way. Should be able to find its way home. Bit expensive as it is a CMD, but it is going to do some good damage. They're dropping this thing down to the red. Does this ship get its bombs off or not? No, it is desperately trying to run back as Tantos are going to smell blood in the water. Mamba Flight's starting to open up with their guns now. There's another missile going there. Wham! That's going to be a splashdown of a bomber. Want to make sure your bombers are escorted. Collecting a free kill like that, very good, but once the enemy carrier player responds and says, hey, you're not allowed to do that anymore, now you're going to have these combat air patrols looking around the battle space, trying to potentially hunt these little assets like we see over here. Caltrop Flight, Tyrant Flight, Inferno Flight. These things are very vulnerable as I don't see any immediate nearby planes. Let's take a look. Hitman Squadron is here, but they are currently on escort station, and looks like Mamba is going to be picking up another couple of these guys, running their way forwards here. Let's see if there's any defenses around the place. A couple of flak shots kind of going off around here. Looks like this little kind of point defense turret is going to be seeing them off, so yeah. That will do a good job to like kind of dissuade them from their attack, but still they were able to project themselves over a lot of space here, making sure bombers don't have free reign of the map. Still a little bit engaged here as they're kind of jockeying for position. They want to take out these bombers, but they can't quite get close enough. They're really trying to go for it, but if they get too close, that CWIS turret on top of this thing is going to shred through them. Let's see, Mass Driver Liner over here does not unfortunately have any defense really on it. Just going for those mass drivers, it's very expensive power-wise and points-wise for that, so I have to make sure you get it right. Anyways, they're going to find the carrier here, potentially. The Mulch kind of on the run. Oh, here we go. They're flying around again, engaging Caltrop Flight. Let's see, do they fly intercept or not? There is interceptors on the map. The Hitman Squadron is down here, but AD Riser needs to scramble another wing to take out Mamba Squad, who is just having a good time. Anyways, looks like actually, yeah, so they're just kind of splitting even. A couple of those size ones trying to go after these guys and maybe hitting them, maybe not. They can juke and evade and stuff, so that's going to be a mixed bag. We've looked at that long enough. Let's take a look at the other parts of the map. So Kiwi Burp down here under the map, kind of in this little central crevice. They are engaging the enemy. The cap situation has developed. A point was secured by the OSP. B point is contested up top, so the very windy multi-mission tug we saw earlier, it has been run up by one of these torpedo corvettes that pulled back from this area and is holding the ground there. It's trying to finish off this little multi-mission tug, but it's having a hard go at it. These reinforced components are pretty tough. Aux steering and reinforced drive will keep you in the fight until this thing is eventually smacked by possibly a bombing run or something. See, Avarice over here has some SGM size 2 whippets. Might be going for a bombing run, lining it up. We will see if they decide to or not. They are on hard burn. These carriers are right next door to this thing, so they could potentially just drop something and then have them go deal with it real fast. Anyways, looks like that flight has been either taken out or forced back. I believe they were taken out, just lingering a little too long. Yeah, it looks like Comet Flight got airborne, and then they had something to say about it. Their guns have seen some use. Jamming pods, got some missiles on these things. Yeah, multiple varieties there, so that's probably what did them in. Anyways, Fury Flight over here looking to collect some real estate. Unfortunately, going to be walking into Cocoa Powder's range, as here we go, come out some bucklers. Quickly going to see them popping chaff and flares and just desperately trying to avoid. Countermeasures are quite good on this craft, as they will seduce some of the threats, but you only have so many of them, so that's going to be enough to see them off, though, for the immediate moment, at least until this thing's missiles are exhausted. We see a couple of them really trying to get them here, just can't quite. Ooh, maybe on the go-around. Ooh, does look like it actually might get a hit in there. Let's see. Nope, does not look like it's inflicted damage. All right, gunfight in the front line here as the 100 mil and... yeah, that's 100 mil mostly, right? No, that's 250. Right, 250 and Plasma is trying to chew up Edge here. Edge in the battleship. Looks like the front has done... ooh, yeah, that's going to be big plasma damage that's stripped off the side of this thing. Whole guts have been rearranged on the front of this thing as it just completely got the top of it taken off and ripped apart. Mass drivers also contributing fire. This is what you want mass drivers to do. When you have a frontline engagement like this, they hit from an odd angle and they start taking out big important things like these dragonfly drives in the back. So yeah, you can see those things redded out and then followed up on by, say, 450 or 250 like this. Very good frontline engagement there. OSP is going to be capping the C point now as the monitor ball has moved off from A. OSP basically just kind of walking forwards in this game. They are going to collect a kill on this destroyer before too long. Beam has been taken out along with the blanket jammers. No way to hide this thing, and those 100 mil guns are going to start ripping into it, as well as the big old 600 mil nose guns. That is a huge frontline fleet that you do not have the ability to contest with a single beam destroyer. Very good tool to bring into a fight, like we saw with the mass driver liner from afar. If you have a frontline engagement here and you pop the beam destroyer out and zap some of these guys, it'll do very well, but on its own, it's just going to get run up and done up by a dedicated 3,000 point fleet like so. Anyways, that's going to be heading towards a 4-cap situation for the OSP. ANS kind of needs to bring themselves back into the game. They do still have both of their carriers that have gone largely untouched. Same can be said for the escort, not the escort, the light carrier over here on the OSP side, which is doing pretty well. It was threatened briefly by a flight. Anyways, we see some of these Barracudas also engaging against Fury Flight over there. So Python, unfortunately, is just one ship against, looks like, 3 of them there. So it's not the fight you want to be taking. Comet Flight might have to intervene and see if they engage or not. Looks like they are attacking a target here, so they have been ordered to engage, trying to avenge their brethren. Back on the A point, looks like some things have been taxed out. We saw that shuttle died very early on in the game, but over here we can see, yeah, those little, these corvettes got killed off by something or other, and looks like one of these monitors did end up getting bled out. One of these monitors also on borrowed time, as it's still technically alive, but it's not really having a good time. Does not have any restores, just a CIC and a reactor there. Big old gunfight continuing on here as these 250 broadsider liners, when they get into range and they can actually hold lock, they are devastating. Edge still technically alive, but those mass drivers is making him miserable as he's trying to limp back into cover. Support weapons do their job when you are allowed to use them correctly. A lot of people struggle to get mass drivers into the correct fire arcs due to the long sightline that you have to establish to them to keep your device safe. But when you do like this and you just coordinate with your teams, you can see some serious violence occurring. 4-cap for that OSP team is possibly being contested here. Edge trying to make a heroic play. Mark 62 Brick going over here trying to fight against this little multi-mission tug. C-30 nose gun is pretty good with 100 mil. At the same time, this thing has Mark 62s as its armament, but it is not firing currently. Not sure why. CIC must be out. I think that's it. Yeah, this thing is not under command, so it can't fire in return. Probably a 1 engagement there. Just going to wait and see how fast this thing takes to cycle and return fire with. Also had a jammer there, potentially blinding this ship, so it was not able to fire in time. and that meant that its CIC got sniped out. All right, let's take a look around the battle space. B point secure. Large ANS contingent kind of like along the top of this rock here. They're holding the B point. They've got 2 of their carriers. They're starting to get some more wings airborne. We see there's assassin flight here, Fulcrum as well. They've got a couple of these bombers just kind of hanging around. They need to make something happen, and they need to do it soon as they are falling further behind on caps. Yes, Edge does get onto the cap here, but because he is not under command, and we just saw his CIC get sniped out there, that means he cannot cap this point. That means this multi-mission tug will be eating good, and also that 450, hilarious overkill against a ship of this caliber, but as we see off in the distance there, just watch as these shots rain in. Some T-20 from that shuttle as well, I believe. Smack, 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 smack. Overpens, so they deal like 20% of their damage, but still very powerful. All right. Frontline 4 heading still seems to be working pretty well for them, as Acello plus Monitor was a old favorite on the previous patch and still has some teeth in this case, as we saw they engage against the enemy frontline and, well, largely folded it. The battleship and the light cruiser were just not quite enough to hold up against it, because this is a bit of a reliance on that battleship as your linchpin. You've got a cap fleet, you've got a support fleet, and then you've got Vine coming in with a bit more stuff here. Maybe a little bit light on that frontline beef, as you do need to have something to hold up against a dedicated push like we saw with the Acello plus those monitors. So we'll call that like 4.5k of just reinforced heavy frontline that wants to push in, get up close and personal, really sink their teeth in, especially when reinforced by Kiwi Bird, which is another 3k that wants to get up on you. So kind of the OSP just clean, simple frontline 4-head rush delivering itself and kind of just securing them the win here, as ANS went a little too technical. Expect a lot more of the lighter cappers, so they brought tools to try and take those down. Vine over here had a bunch of these kind of like screening frigates that I don't know if I ever saw fire. They have STM defenses, so I'm guessing these are trying to be like SAW anti-carrier, anti-strike craft devices, but unfortunately, the only carrier they brought is like maybe, I don't know, like between 1,000 to like 1,500 points worth of stuff. So yeah, it will see these things off, but what do you do about the rest of this? Like, there's just so much beef on this. That's like, what do you call that? This is 3k, that's 3k, this is 1.5. That's like 7.5k worth of frontline beef that is there to sink its teeth into you. Ugh. Now we're seeing some bombers going up here, because we saw over here this Vauxhall earlier. When we saw at the start of the game, it was looking quite nice. Now it's looking like a burnt kitchen sponge. It's got that lovely yellow and bluish style, also with those holes perforated into it. I've used that joke before, but I'm going to use it again, goddammit. Anyways, broadside is declared as the 250 asserts its dominance over the lesser 250 ship. The sign hiss is certainly hissing as all the atmosphere is escaping the ship. Cluster 17 trying to do its job, unfortunately cannot. Look at the internals, just the CIC and big Raider drive keeping this thing in the game. I guess technically that reactor as well. Only a matter of time before that thing is double tapped. Yeah, that is a lot of damage being dealt here. Turns out frontline is still kind of effective when you just are not able to counter it, because as we saw there, Edge was the only like kind of reinforced heavy frontline ship. The CL is a good device, don't get me wrong, but it has to play that dodge stance game about 6.6 to 8 kilometers there outside of the enemy lock distance, able to evade quite well, but it does have fairly thin armor, especially after the patch nerfed it a little bit, but in turn gave it better evasion. RPF very good against light craft, but in this case, just bringing the wrong tools to the board. They brought way too much stuff to counter against heavy OSP carrier presence, and instead the OSP just decided, hey, if you're gonna probably do something like that, what if we just go light carrier? What if we just bring 4-head, like, mouth breather aggression build? Turns out it fucking works. So, credit to OSP for bringing a fairly simple comp, but hey, we respect simple. Simple is direct. Anyways, frag out is called by Wellspur. Let's see, where is Wellspur? Which one's Wellspur? Completely blanking on them. There we are. Wellspur over here saying frag out. That's going to be GG called. GG, well played. So yeah, OSP bring frontline, ANS does not. That's kind of the case here. If they had another pair of Axfords in place of, say, Vine's fleet here, that could have been like 6,000 point frontline, a lot of 450, would have seen off these very wounded monitors. As you can see, a number was done to these things. Like, their damage control boards are not looking the greatest, and they definitely aided on the approach there, but they just didn't quite have enough to do it in the time afforded to them. So, yeah. Over here, we see Kiwi Burb was able to get into range, and yet Kiwi also ate quite a few shots there. Significant damage across multiple vessels. It might not show it like on the initial like kind of color scheme here, but you can see these various weapons all kind of getting knocked down. So even though you have like some working things like your thrusters and maybe your reactor and drive are okay, a lot of your weapons are kind of dinged up. So yeah. And it just didn't quite have that frontline beef they needed to counter the OSP's heavy metal aggression. And that's just going to be them kind of rounding it out here or so. Yeah, I'm going to take a little drinky of water because I am thirsty. Chat, you should do the same. Yeah. Ooh, There is a reactor bloom going off there. That was, at one point, the destroyer. Unfortunately, now the destroyer has gone supernova. So there you go. For, what is it, like, I don't know, 0.2 microseconds or something, it is a miniature star, and then it just goes kablooey. All right. Spoon leaky over here certainly is. Look at those atmosphere leaks and the smoke going. Mass drivers, especially for good measure on this thing, is just trying to find its way into cover. No mercy, no respite. The name of the game here. So just pounding it from, like, what now? 1, 2, 3, 4 angles or so. Yep, that's them. I like them to throw in the towel. That's going to be that. Ooh, we need bombers not to get second Pathfinder loop on first go. Looks like, unfortunately, yeah, sometimes you get fighter craft stuck on terrain. That's something that's kind of a issue with some modded maps here or there. We've been trying to parse through those as best we can. Anyways, I'm going to export that battle report. We'll submit that one over to Vostal, and then that will be a good thing, and we'll get our post-game thing. All right, yeah. GG's. Yeah, server. Thanks. We're just going to clear out of the server and find out how that goes. Yeah, you can do double escort carrier like this, but I think that just a more expensive single escort is kind of the way to go. I feel like the way we've been kind of like progressing with the game is we've noticed that it's like about like 1K or so, give or take, for one of these like light carriers, and about maybe 2K or so for an escort. That seems about right. Then the dedicated Moorline hull as carrier setup, that seems to want to be a 3K. So yeah, interesting to see as people are figuring out carriers still. There's a lot of things that go into these things depending on what kind of modules you want to bring, what kind of craft you want to bring, what role does this take up in a fleet. Say you might be going air superiority, you might want to go with a whole bunch of, say, Tanto fighters or Barracudas on the OSP side. Maybe you want to go more scout heavy, so you take some more sundials and some of these skiffs and things. You could go heavy on bombers and try and hunt capitals. It's nice to see the game developing the way it is, so yeah. All right, just seeing damage dealt here. Yeah, 250 on those. I like my liners, and I am liking seeing what these things were able to do that game. Yeah, this one also eating quite well. Mass drivers are still quite potent when they are set up correctly. Having a little 1K support asset quite good there. Ooh. Running light carrier for 1.5. You can make them expensive, true, but again, it's trying to find your best cost effectiveness on return. So we can just get the lobby cleared here, please. That would make it so we can possibly queue up another one. I'll have to go on a little break there and then coordinate and figure out with people, and also decide when I'm going to fall over exhausted today, because I can feel myself shutting down. Ooh.